welcome to the SVG-TV news for Tuesday, June 14th. I am Khalil Cato with the details. Government has taken emergency steps to prevent another increase in the fuel surcharge on electricity bills for Vinlec's customers. The fuel surcharge this month has jumped from 58 cents per kilowatt hour to 72.52 cents per unit, as an increase of 14 cents per unit. Reporting on an emergency meeting held with the Director General of Finance and Planning, Edmund Jackson, Chair of the Board of Vinlec, Rene Batiste, and Acting CEO of Vinlec, Dr. Vaughan Lewis, Prime Minister Dr. Alf Gonsalves on radio yesterday said that he has given instructions to keep the electricity bill that is coming out today at in a reasonable frame.
Bill is going to go up, but to contain the increase. Let me just back up by saying that on Saturday evening, I got a call from the chairman of Vinlec, Rene Batiste, who indicated to me that because of the price of the electricity, the diesel, that the number for the fuel surcharge, which is to pay for the increased price for the diesel, would make the fuel surcharge jump from 58 cents per kilowatt hour, 58 cents per unit, 58 point something cents per unit, to 72.5 cents per unit.
Whoa.
You hear me?
A significant
jump of 14 cents per unit. The highest that it has ever been is in 2008, when it was 67 cents approximately per unit per kilowatt hour, the fuel surcharge. Remember, in that year, in June, July, the price rose for diesel, unrefined diesel, the crude oil, to at $147.50 a barrel.
PM Gonsalves says he anticipates criticism about why the subsidy was being extended to commercial consumers, noting that a consumer who pays $135 would see an increase slightly less than $10, about half of what it would have been had it not been for his government's intervention.
But I want the public to know that it's the best we can do in the circumstances. We split it 50-50. What it would mean is that if you were, say, your bill was, say, between $130 and $135, $130, $135 a month, say, they'll put it at a figure like that. Rather than paying about $20 more, you'll probably pay 10 or slightly under 10 more.
Yes.
Now, it didn't make sense that I take off the VAT completely, because if I do that, half of the people who are poor people not paying the VAT in any case already.
Correct.
Because they consume less than the 150 units a month. You see where I'm coming from? So I had to do something which would help them.
The Prime Minister further noted that the dry weather is the cause of the increased use of electricity in SVG, and with the rains beginning to return, hopefully hydroelectricity generation will increase rapidly and help to contain the fuel surcharge.
One of the reasons why we're using more electricity, and therefore it costing us more, is because it's the dry weather. So we're not getting as much generation from
hydro.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we see the rain start to come a little. Hopefully next month, we would have a little bit more generation from hydro now.
Yes.
And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that maybe we might get a little relief on the diesel in terms of the global price now.
Prime Minister Gonsalves said he is also in conversation with Venezuela regarding how soon Petrocaribe will resume, as he noted the sanctions imposed by the United States.
But we're up in the air, and that's why when I'm finished here with you, I'm going to get on the phone to the relevant persons in Venezuela to find out when we starting back with Petrocaribe. So there's some logistics which have to be worked out, because we have to make sure that we don't run afoul of these unilateral sanctions which the United States of America has put on Venezuela. Remember, they're not sanctioned by the United Nations, you know.
Yes.
This is just unilateral on the side of the Americans alone, bringing pressure on Venezuela. But while they bringing pressure on Venezuela, they send a team down there just over a month ago to talk to President Maduro to see if they can get some cheaper fuel for themselves and to get American company to get drilling license.
Meanwhile, in a news release today, Vinlec reminded customers of an earlier statement made about 3 weeks ago addressing the increasing cost of fuel and its impact on the fuel surcharge rates on customers' electricity bills. At that time, the company indicated that further increases in the cost of fuel would lead to an even larger increase in the fuel surcharge rate. The company says in its release today that regrettably, over the past month, this trend has continued, and it has resulted in the company paying approximately $9 million for the fuel used to generate electricity during the period. The figure, it says, represents the highest cost the company has ever paid in a single month for fuel used in the generation of electricity. The result of this is a calculated fuel surcharge rate of 72.52 cents per kilowatt hour. Vinlec says its board of directors and the government have come together to offer some relief to customers by an injection of funds that will result in customers having to pay less than the actual cost of the fuel used during the month. The injection, it says, will reduce the fuel surcharge rate applicable on June's electricity bills to 65.79 cents per kilowatt hour, down from the calculated 72.52 cents per kilowatt hour. Vinlec says that it is mindful that while the effort does bring some relief to customers, the fuel surcharge rate is still higher than the previous month, noting that like all countries worldwide, the company is negatively impacted by the high cost of petroleum products. In this regard, Vinlec is encouraging consumers to conserve electricity to assist in mitigating the impact of a high monthly fuel cost. The company says it will continue to monitor fuel prices and likely the impact on customers and give an update as the situation develops. The Ministry of Agriculture is seeking to establish a common ground between farmers and traffickers to help end the ongoing push and pull. This is according to Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries Soboto Caesar, who was speaking on Star Radio on Monday. Minister Caesar said as a result of the global increase in prices in animal feed and fertilizers, farmers and traffickers have not been able to come to a mutual understanding on the price of their produce, and the ministry will be stepping in to deal with the matter.
We want to ensure, as the ministry, that the farmer who is in a position where he is experiencing all these changes in terms of the prices, and he's getting some pushback from the trafficker, because the trafficker also, he is feeling the increase in the prices, the whole inflation. And the people in Trinidad and Tobago, they are saying, well, we are going to pay you this because we're speculating on this market. But the people in Trinidad and Tobago, they do not have an appreciation of the inflation that is taking place by commodity in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Neither does the trafficker, who is a pure trafficker. They are trafficker farmers who would have an understanding. So we want to ensure to the farmers of St. Vincent and the Grenadines that we are going to help you to calculate what are the increases that you're facing, so that you will not undervalue your produce. It is also very important that you don't overvalue it, because if you overvalue it, then what would happen? The people in Trinidad and Tobago will say, well, we could get it cheaper from Letem, or we could get it cheaper from some other country, and we can lose the market.
As he noted how delicate this period is, Minister Caesar said that the ministry has no intention of sitting back and doing nothing. Hence, there will be an exchange of communication between the ministry and technicians who have a great understanding of and appreciation for the increases taking place locally, regionally, and internationally.
We have to ensure too that the discounts that we are experiencing, for example, in the price for fertilizer, that it benefits the farmers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and and we have to ensure that it's not basically left to just get wings and to fly away to the persons in the export market. Because if you do not capture it here locally, and if you do not in a very organized way factor what is the real selling price for fertilizer into the new price and the new prices for the goods, then basically you'll be subsidizing the market. And the subsidy we really want to be passed on to the farmer and to be shared along the entire supply chain. But of course, we would want a bulk of it to be passed on to the farmer.
The Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force is seeing innovative strategies being used by criminals to get illegal firearms and drugs into the island. Commissioner of Police Colin John says the force will no doubt have to up their game to prevent criminal elements from succeeding. Speaking on the WeFM Issues at Hand program on Sunday, the head of police says police officers have seen illegal firearms being concealed in household appliances and vehicles when they are searched at the ports. He adds local law enforcement is collaborating with the regional security systems to intercept shipments of drugs, illegal firearms, and money.
We are dealing with that on a regional level, where we would consult with our neighbors in terms of the new trends into smuggling drugs and guns and even money. Because sometime recently, we intercepted a boat that came from Trinidad. They had some sailors there, and then they had like a ball of twine there. Someone was willing to pay $1,000 for the ball of twine. So we know this thing seemed strange. When we unravel the twine, they had over $50,000 on the stick that had the twine, and then they ravel the twine over it. So for criminals, they're finding innovative ways of transshipping drugs or bringing drugs and even firearms into St. Vincent and Grenadines. We have received intel where persons bring in vehicles and they bring in guns in different parts of the vehicles, washing machine, those things. So these are things that we really have to step up and.
He highlights Oya and Union Island as vulnerable areas where criminals are targeting for the importation of drugs and guns. He adds the Coast Guard has been paying extra attention to the waters around the Grenadine Islands.
We have had intel where some persons on yachts, they're not just casual sailors or persons who have to enjoy themselves. Persons have used yachts to bring in drugs and firearms into the country. And that's one of the weak area, that's one of the areas that we find firearms coming in. Based on our intel, Union Island and Ovia, we can be quite vulnerable in these areas. Persons coming in from St. Lucia in the case of Ovia, and persons coming from Grenada in the case of Union Island. And these are areas that the Coast Guard, they are paying particular attention to.
The commissioner says the force plans to make use of scanners at the island's ports of entry to prevent illegal firearms from entering the country.
Well, we do not produce guns. So most of the guns, they come through, they come to St. Vincent through the port, whether legal or illegal. So we have stepped up our patrol with the Coast Guard. St. Vincent and Grenadines are one of the few countries that have an offshore patrol vessel, so we have stepped up the patrol in that area. We are also, the police force in conjunction with the port, we are trying to obtain a scanner so that we're able to scan barrels and big items so that we can detect if there's any firearm that may be in those, like washing machines and other implements. We are also in the process of having canine dogs. There's an active discussion. I know it was discussed at the last estimate, the preparation for the last estimate, and it is something that we are pursuing again.
And Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves praised the DPP's office for doing a great job. He, however, noted that there should be a closer coordination with the police on specific cases. He was also speaking on the Issues at Hand program on WFM on Sunday.
This is always a difficulty between the cases when they're prepared and how they're delivered in the court. In other jurisdictions, but we have to get it right. We have an independent judiciary, but sometimes I read about cases and I get reports from the commissioner, as I would inquire about this or that case. Sometimes we see some decisions which are troubling, and sometimes we see some sentencing which some sentences delivered appear to be inconsistent. All those things need to be sorted out. That is not in my purview. That is the business of the judiciary and people who come under the Chief Justice.
And the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines will continue to provide income support for the next 6 months to approximately 4,000 families in the red, orange and yellow zones who were affected by the eruption of La Soufrière. This came from Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves on Star Radio's Morning Scoop program today. The income support is through a negotiation made between the Minister of Finance, Camilo Gonsalves, and the World Bank under the Volcano Eruption Emergency Program.
The Volcano Eruption Emergency Program. We're going to go to 4,000 households. Of course, some of those, a huge chunk of the 3,702 had gotten before. We have to double check those, and new names have to go on. Some people are dead. Some people have jobs. Some people have migrated. You understand what I mean?
Right. Prime Minister Gonsalves noted that the money for the income support would be placed on cards, and someone from a household will be able to access it through the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
When that person a bank card to the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Already, we have a list of just over 3,000 as of last night. We have a few hundred more double checking. They have to go back to North Windward, North Central, and they got to go back to North Leeward. And then finalizing the list now. I know that already 1,200 cards have been prepared by the bank. Before the end of this month, we will announce the commencement for the distribution of those cards. Because what we're doing every month, we're going to put the money on the card. The money would vary in accordance with the size of the household. You hear me?
Yes.
That making Leacock and the opposition go basically. You ever hear government giving somebody a bank, giving them for 6 months? Eh?
Yes.
Hopefully we'll start to be able to pay them for July and make sure they get the money down to December now. You know where they're coming from?
Yes.
An 84-year-old female with underlying conditions who tested positive for COVID-19 on May 31st at the Chateaubriand Smart Hospital is this country's latest COVID-19 victim. The fully vaccinated female died on June 10th of COVID-19 pneumonia at her home. Her death brings the number of persons who in SVG to die from the virus to 109. Additionally, the report issued by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment on Monday, June 13th, noted 162 active COVID-19 cases, 3 hospitalizations, and 18 recoveries. A number of educational institutions across St. Vincent and the Grenadines have in recent times seen an increase in the hand, foot and mouth disease. The contagious viral infection is common in young children and is characterized by sores in the mouth and a rash on the hands and feet. In an interview with SVG-TV News, President of the SVG Teachers Union, Oswald Robinson, called on authorities to establish effective measures to lessen the impact of the foot, hand and mouth disease.
Point of view, the situation is one that requires urgent attention, and we are calling on the authorities to take all necessary measures to mitigate the impact of this hand, foot and mouth disease. We know last school term, last school year, this problem started to affect certain schools, and it was like a cover-up. you see, but you have to always realize that whatever is done in secret must come to light. So the point now is that the authorities need to take all necessary measures, because this disease, the way I understood it, does not only affect children, young children, but it could spread to adults. So our teachers are also at risk, and the safety and the health of other students in the classroom. So I think the Ministry of Health needs to advise the Ministry of Education to take all necessary steps to ensure the health and the safety of the students in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and by further extension, the staff of every school. We have to be meticulous in what we do with our students around this time.
While encouraging parents to keep a watchful eye on their children, Robinson says extra precautions must be taken to prevent an outbreak in the affected schools.
And to encourage the parents, if you notice that your students, your children having these problems, to report to your nearest health centers to take the necessary advice from them in dealing with this growing problem that we are having here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So the teachers' union is concerned, and we are calling on the authorities to do the honorable thing. If you have to close some schools, please do that, because that is the best thing to be done at this time.